Good morning. Great to see everyone. I'm Dr. John Silva. I've been a Salinas resident going back to 1987 and have attended several Martin Luther King Day celebrations here, and with this, we're hoping to keep this tradition going. A very instrumental person, Pastor Steve Lundin, retired last year from First United Methodist Church, and so some of the pastors and some of the community activists decided this was important to keep going, and here we are. And of very important note, Reverend Lundin retired, but he does have a replacement, Reverend Shinja Goto, and he's with us today, so he'll help us keep this tradition going. So in a minute, we'll have the keynote speaker for this part of today's presentation, but we will move to City Hall Rotunda and have there. So, sí, gracias a todos. Qué bueno que llegó hoy para celebrar con nosotros el evento sobre King. Es muy importante que empezaremos su conmemoración aquí, y las razones yo voy a explicar. In December of 1970, Cesar Chavez was incarcerated here for 3 weeks. He was incarcerated for practicing the nonviolent method of boycott as regards to lettuce. Cesar had come to believe that nonviolence is more powerful than violence. And that's a quote of his. This is important because of the history of violent labor relations in Salinas dating back to September 1936. Okay, en diciembre de 1970, Cesar estuvo encarcelada aquí durante 3 semanas. Fue encarcelada por practicar el método no violente de boicotear la lechuga. Cesar había llegado a creer que la no violencia es más poderosa que la violencia. Esto es importante debido a la historia de relaciones laborales violentas en Salinas que se remonta hasta septiembre 1936. Okay, bringing it up to King, the widow, Coretta Scott King, was moved to come to speak to Cesar to encourage him in his nonviolent practices. There are telegram communications between King and Chavez documenting this. They both believed in Mahatma Gandhi's first principle of nonviolence. That is, violence is not for cowards. Cowards is kind of a strong word, but this was some time ago, and we have to be strong and brave to be nonviolent. Particularly in our city's history, this nonviolence must be achieved by multiracial collaboration. History has shown that. La viuda Coretta Scott King se sintió conmovida y quiso hablar con Cesar para impulsar en sus prácticas no violentas. Ambos crean en el primer principio de la no violencia de Mahatma Gandhi, que dice, la violencia no es para cobardes. En la historia de nuestra ciudad en particular, esta no violencia debe lograrse mediante la colaboración multiracial. Okay, so we have a great speaker who's actually going to reenact Coretta Scott King's word that day, December 22nd, 1970. Salinas was at the center of a national story at that time because of Cesar, and various dignitaries would come here to see Cesar as he was fasting and as he was incarcerated. So we're so lucky to have a local person, Tamisha Allen Smith, who is, she works for our school district. Tamisha is the Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Coordinator, will be chief someday, but coordinator at this point of the Salinas Union High School District. So that would be so great. So
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And I'm honored to reenact Coretta Scott King's words. As I was preparing to leave my house in the East, the President of the United States was involved in a unique ceremony. On Wednesday, he was publicly celebrating the reaching of the $1 trillion mark in the annual output of American goods and services. $1 trillion is a lot of money. $1,000 billion so much, it's hard to understand. But what is easy to understand is that even with such fabulous wealth, there is poverty in this country. $1 trillion economy takes care very handsomely of the people at the top. It takes care generously of the people near the top. It rewards people in the middle, but it starves and brutalizes people at the bottom. The weight of all that wealth is like a mountain crushing millions who are below it, and especially those poor who are Black, brown, and red-skinned. We live in a day where great unions are institutionalized in the structure of our society. This means, in ordinary terms, that the long-established unions no longer have to fight to survive. They are recognized and accepted, and certainly they should be. They no longer lose strikes. They struggle only for a greater share of the proceeds of their work. Yet your union in this day fights to live. Those who control the billion-dollar economy have said, Blacks and Chicanos do not have the right to a decent life or to human dignity. They must live on the crumbs from the tables groaning with food. Cesar Chavez is in this jail because he believes that you should have the same rights and privileges Americans should enjoy. For more than 30 years, no one would concede that point. For more than 30 years, no one would concede that point. And for more than 30 years, farm workers were thought to be unorganizable and so powerless that they could not demand and achieve security and dignity. But Cesar Chavez challenged the tyrants, organized the working poor, and became a threat, so they jailed him. But as my husband so often said, you cannot keep truth in a jail cell. Truth and justice leaps barriers and in their own way reach the conscience of the people. The men of power thought my husband was a powerless man with grandiose ideas. He had nothing but an idea that people at the bottom could be aroused to fight for dignity and equality. The power structure became alarmed when his ideas were transformed into marching millions and the right to vote, the right to use public facilities, the right to jobs, and the right to private dignity were one. You are carrying on with other millions at the bottom the work my husband began. That is why I have come here today. Not just to support you, but to salute you. I feel so close to you because nowhere in this country are people so fearlessly upholding their rights in a spirit of militant nonviolence. Our brotherhood is not only grounded in our common exploitation, not only in our victimization of race, but it is based on our use of the same social weapon: nonviolence, organization, militant mass action, and soul force. Our struggle, like yours, that is, the struggle of Black people, cannot be won by us alone. We had to find allies among the Americans of goodwill, Black, brown, and white, who are ashamed of poverty in a $1 trillion economy. That is why your boycotts have succeeded. While some Americans are willing to forget the poor and, if necessary, suppress them with violence and brutality, there are still many Americans who cannot live with the immorality of inequality. They believe the heritage of this nation is decency and fair play. They would not eat grapes when grapes became a symbol of oppression, and they will not eat lettuce now that it has become tainted with injustice. They cannot be complacent about the brutal fact that though you feed the affluent society, it starves you. This is why you will win. This is why Cesar Chavez will be free. You are doing what you must do: organizing, resisting, boycotting, and demonstrating across the land while remaining nonviolent. No struggle based on these principles has ever failed if it remains spirited and united. The struggles that are lost have occurred when discipline was broken, when violence of a few was substituted for a mass resistance and determination, when impatient, unthinking people thought there was a shortcut and cheap road to victory. Social progress has always come when the people at the bottom who organized in strength and from the foundation shook the whole structure. Social change does not come from voluntary goodwill and charity from the top. It comes from the motion at the bottom. Black people and brown people are herded at the bottom and told to be quiet and to wait for slow change. But change has never come to us in waiting. Waiting has multiplied the profits of the rich, but it deadens and depresses those below. We are tens of millions strong, and waiting not only offends our dignity, but leaves us in deprivation. We know our own history. Waiting and patience have resulted in economic exploitation and racial abuse. And finally, together, we have said there is an end to waiting. We are not enemies of this nation, but we are treated as if we were conquered and enslaved. We have fed and clothed the nation by our sweat and by our toil, but our share in its goods is the share of prisoners. I know we will win our common fight because we are more united and have more mutual respect than ever in our history. And because in mass ranks, we are moving forward. I hope as we look for allies, we will give special attention to women. First of all, most women in this country, like non-whites, are not equal. They can understand our profound need for freedom and equality. They also have special power to make a boycott punishing for the exploiters. It is they who buy lettuce. And when lettuce becomes a symbol of inequality and oppression, women will know that they too have the stake in our struggle. In closing, I want to express a personal note. I do not have to read books or stimulate my imagination to understand how grueling it is to work in a sun-baked field all day. I was born in the land in rural Alabama and worked in the cotton fields. Although my family owned the land, the system was organized to keep the earnings from the cotton too low to maintain an adequate sustenance. My father worked at 2 jobs to advance, and he managed to educate his children and provide security. Often I think, what a remarkable man he was, and what a great contribution he would have made to society had it been given to him. Opportunities that were given to others. So I know that among you, your children are undiscovered, undeveloped people of talent. Cesar Chavez is not an accident. He is a genius of his people, and their union, the Farm Workers Union, is a hero union. When you have succeeded in making your lives more secure and richer, the whole nation will benefit. This is why our struggle has deeper dimensions than a strike for wages. You are demanding a place in the halls of man. You are saying there are no lowly people. There are only people who are forced down. It is this nation, if this nation can provide $1 trillion every year, it is a disgrace in the eyes of God that some people should be haunted by hunger and hounded by racism. The President of the United States should not gloat and take pride in $1 trillion economy. He should be ashamed and mortified to acknowledge that abundance exists while the system producing it still cheats the poor. His days should be restless until the crime and violence of poverty is rooted out of the land rich beyond imagination. While the president stands before the flashing lights of the computer that says $1 trillion, we stand before a dark jail that says oppression. America cannot be both and be America. Our consolation is that if the president will not do what democracy demands, we have the power to struggle until exploitation and racism are torn out of this nation, even if its structures must be shaken and altered to bring about decency for all God's people.
Amen.
2,000 years ago in Bethlehem, a man spoke to the lowly about poverty and human dignity. Jesus of Nazareth was crucified, but he is here with us in Salinas today because the lowly need him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamisha. Those words are universal and current at the same time. What a powerful speech. Hay algo allá para todos. Tan universal y tan corriente son esas palabras. Otra cosa, today happens to be Tamisha's birthday. So, what a great way to have a birthday. Hoy es cumpleaños de Tamisha. Okay, so unos poco palabras de housekeeping. This is a historic site. Since 2018 or 2019, this spot, you can read it sometime when you have a chance, commemorates that and the visit of Ethel Kennedy, who passed away this year or last year, and so many others who came to visit Cesar during his 3-week stay here. So, es un lugar histórico por Salinas, ese sitio donde estamos. Todo lo que yo voy a decir es, si no tiene la chance más tarde a leerlo, termina la placa con la preservación de la propia cultura no exige desaparición ni falta de respeto hacia otras cosas. These are Chavez's words. Preservation of one's culture does not require contempt or disrespect for other cultures. Okay? La unión es la fuerza. Okay, hi.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Feedback, Ansel.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna talk with my mind on freedom. I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna talk with my mind on freedom. I'm gonna walk with my mind on freedom. Hallelujah.
Give me a couple.
Hallelujah.
Happy New Year.
Professional, but I'm like,
Yes, you did.
and we're gonna. I think I will say from it tonight, those who needed information had the information shared. Is that a broader scale?
Can you hear me?
You're fine, right? Oh, yeah.
There shall be no greater power anywhere beneath the sun, or the thunder and the speaker, and the people strength of one. But our union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Union makes us strong. En los campos de Salinas, we shall pursue libertad. Los trabajadores tienen ya libertad. Y por eso, compañeros, nos tenemos que cuidar con solidaridad. Solidaridad para siempre, solidaridad para siempre, solidaridad para siempre, que viva nuestra unión. Got it? They call and find the thoughts they were lost. Dungeons shook and the chains came off. Your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. Now the only chain a person can stand is that chain of hand to hand.
I don't know. I'm just trying to like think through.
Hold on, hold on. Keep your eye. Thank you. Hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on. No, one's falling out. No, one's falling out. No, one's falling out. Unidos en la lucha, no nos moverán. Unidos en la lucha, no nos moverán como una voz. Unidos en la huelga, no nos moverán. Unidos en la huelga, no nos moverán como una voz. Firme no vamos, no nos moverán. We shall not, we shall not, we shall not go like the tree. We are fighting for our freedom. We shall not be fighting for our freedom. We shall not be fighting for we shall not be we shall not be moved like a tree standing by the wall. We shall not be moved. We will stand and fight together. We shall not be moved. Stand and fight together. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree standing by the wall. We shall not be moved just like the standing by the water. We shall not be moved. No, hold it on. No, hold it up. Go move my voice. Don't give up the fight. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Huh. Don't give up the fight. A lot of people think now God will come to the earth. He'll come from the sky. Take away everything. Make everybody high. But now you know what life is worth. For you for yours on earth. Now you see the light. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Oh yeah. Stand up for your rights. Whoa, whoa. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Hey. Get up, stand up. Get up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Ow!
Yeah.
Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Still people go weeping. No more weeping, no more weeping over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. There'll be joy. There'll be joy. There'll be joy over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Woo! Yeah! Ow! Stand up!
Stand up. Thank you.
Right.
Good morning. In case we've gotten any new followers for today, buenos días. En el caso que hay nuevos aquí con nosotros. So this is a very important intersection here in Salinas history. This is an intersection where violence broke out probably 1936 or so, September of 1936, during a previous lettuce strike. Except what was different then was it was a group of Filipino workers and some people from Oklahoma that were also working the fields held a strike, and violence, pretty much by the police and sheriff's office, broke out right here, right in front of First Awakenings. So, esa es la misma esquina donde empezó la violencia histórica entre filipinos, blancos, durante la huelga de lechuga que duró 1934 hasta 36. Y era noticia nacional que la gente, nosotros, ya últimamente ganó. Era muy violente y había incendios en los labor camps, pero últimamente la Unión de Filipinos ya ganó más ingresos por establecer su voz. So ultimately, it ended up being very violent, what happened. The Filipino farm workers, hand in hand with some of the Oklahoma folks, did gain some labor victories. But I think it's very important to say that Chavez knew what happened. He knew about this violent history. about labor, and he knew about it happening in Salinas, and that makes the words that Tamisha spoke earlier all the more important. The recognition that King gave to Chavez about his nonviolent approach, and really that was the only way that we would move forward. So remember that as you sip coffee on this corner in the future and do your shopping.
Yeah, but I'm the one with the pet, so I'm supposed to say that.
Freedom for all, free at last, free.
Yeah!
No easy walk to freedom.
I pushed it out.
Walk to freedom.
I can yell out
And we'll be free. That's how we're gonna make history. Yeah, no easy walk to freedom. Ain't no easy walk to freedom. Keep on walking, we'll be free. That's how we're gonna make history, you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. As I was falling that rhythm highway, I saw that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me.
Yeah!
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. Well, let's just see that chorus one more time. Yes. This land is your land. This land is my land.
Hey, Leo.
From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. You don't even finish church. You and this land was made for you and me. Welcome to
You doing all right? You live this thing? Maybe.
Aquí is our agenda. As you can see, there's a lot planned. The key moments are the keynote speech by Mr. Mel Mason from the Monterey Peninsula. And yes, Super Mel Mason va a hablar con nosotros. Y también hay otro jovencito, se llama Guillermo Meteyen Black, quien es un activista para inmigración, y él va a hablar con nosotros sobre su trabajo aquí en Salinas en ese momento importante. También vamos a tener música. We have musical offerings too. Thanks to gracias a Jeff Richmond, y de vez en cuando vamos a ofrecer quotaciones del Dr. King. So there will be music and some important quotations, important words from Dr. King. Very relevant for today. So we're going to start off with a proclamation for today from the city, and City Councilman Sandoval will read that for us.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Andrew Sandoval, a Salinas City Council member, and I want to recognize, I think almost all of my colleagues are here. We have Council Member Salazar, I saw Councilmember De Arrigo, Councilmember De La Rosa, Mayor Donahue is here. Oh, Councilmember Barrera is here, so thank you all for your support. It's my honor to be able to read this proclamation. It says, whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. Whereas Dr. King's teachings continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our community. Whereas Dr. King transformed the concepts of justice, liberty, equality, and bridged the gap between our founding ideals and the realities of our time. And whereas each year, his life, his dreams, his achievements are commemorated, uniting people from all different cultural backgrounds on this day of celebration for all people everywhere. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Dennis Donahue, on behalf of the Salinas City Council, do hereby proclaim January 20th as Martin Luther King Jr. Day and call upon the community to pay tribute to the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I would like, Andrew mentioned many folks. There's a couple of other people I'd like to mention that I'm seeing that have been very instrumental in todo el progreso en Salinas. Algunos gente importante. Uno es Anthony Rocha. Former City Councilman District 6. Wow, 6. And Phil Tavera. On the school board, the Union District School Board, and I believe I saw Wendy ask you who was by. Thank you all for coming and celebrating with us. Oh, I'm sorry, and Supervisor District 1 from Salinas, Luis Alejo. If it wasn't for a web, I saw that Mr. Alejo posted, the connection and the intention of today wouldn't have happened. It was staring us in the face. The connection of King and Chavez was staring us in the face, and you brought it to light. Thank you so much, Luis. I pledge allegiance
It's a flag.
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with
Liberty and justice for all. For as long as you can afford it.
At this time, I would like to introduce you all, if you haven't met, Pastor Shinya Goto, the minister at the First United Methodist Church, who replaced the retiring Steve William. So, thank you, Pastor.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on this cold morning. I invite you to join me in prayer. Let's pray together. God of justice and compassion, we come before you today as a diverse community, united by a common purpose to honor the life, legacy, and dream of your servant, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As we gather from many traditions, cultures, and beliefs, we seek your presence among us, the one who is called by many names, the source of all that is good, true, and holy. We give thanks for the vision that you planted in Dr. King's heart, a vision of a world where all your children are treated with dignity, where love triumphs over hatred, peace over violence, justice over oppression. Through his words and deeds, you reminded us of our shared humanity, calling us to live not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. Today we gather to remember, to reflect, and to recommit ourselves to the sacred work of building a more just and equitable world. As we lift our hearts in prayer, we ask for your guidance. Strengthen us, O God, to carry forward the legacy of Dr. King. Let us be voices for the voiceless, defenders of the oppressed, and builders of bridges where division and strife have torn us apart. Help us to see in one another the divine spark that unites us all, that we may be bound together in love even amidst our differences. We invoke your blessing upon this event today, upon each person here, and upon the world we seek to transform. May our words, our prayers, and our actions bring us closer to the day when the mountains of despair are leveled and the valleys of hope are lifted high. In the spirit of unity, love, and peace, we lift our voices together. Amen.
Amen. Okay, gracias. Thank you, Pastor. We're going to have another musical opportunity here, and we do have the words for this song, which is considered the African American national anthem. Es una canción considerado el himno de los afroamericanos en los Estados Unidos.
This was originally written as a poem, John told me, in the 1920s. It wasn't until much later that someone put it to music, and they must have meant it for somebody with a very big range. We'll do it in the key of D. Here we go. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Face the rising sun, our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Very nice. Slowly the road we trod, clear the chasing rod, felt in the days when hope, our Lord and God had died. Get to the steady beat, have not a weary feet. Come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam on our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray, and let our feet stray from the places our God where we met thee, lest our hearts drunk with the wine of the world we forget thee. Shadowly beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
So that brings us ahora. Estamos listos oír de nuestro speaker del día, the speaker keynote. I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker for today. So first in English, then in Spanish. Senor Mel Mason is a longtime community activist from Monterey County. He's a veteran of the Air Force. He's a former Black Panther, the former mayor of Seaside, and a candidate for president in 1984.
Yes.
Mel has served the county as a social worker, an educator, and founder of the Village Project in Salinas, California, where he and his equally talented wife, Regina, have changed so many lives for the better. We are very fortunate to have him here today, as he has such an extensive history of political activism for the people. He actually was at the forefront of an important collaboration in the 1970s called the Black UFW Support Committee. He will share his perspective from that effort at Black-Brown Relations and discuss his work with Cesar Chavez. Ahora en español, Mel Mason es un activista comunitaria del condado de Monterey desde hace mucho tiempo. Es un veterano de la Fuerza Air Force, un Black Panther, el alcalde de Seaside alguna vez y candidato por la presidencia de los Estados Unidos en 1984. Mel ha trabajado en el condado como trabajador social, educador, fundador de la Village Project en Seaside, California, donde él y su igualmente talentosa esposa Regina han cambiado muchas vidas por lo mejor. Somos muy afortunados de tenerlo aquí hoy porque tienen una extensa historia de activismo para el pueblo. De hecho, estuvo en el frente de una importante colaboración en la década de los 70s, el Comité de Apoyo Negro de la UFW. Compartirá a su experiencia sobre este esfuerzo en las relaciones entre negros y morenos, y discutirá su trabajo con Cesar Chavez. This is señor Mel Mason. Desgraciadamente no podemos tener posibilidad de traducir sus palabras, pero está bien si habla nomás español, si quiere comunicar con alguien a su ladito, no problema con él si hay gente tratando de entender. So, en ese momento, Mel Mason.
I was actually on the city council in Seaside. I wasn't quite familiar. It was enough for them to take me being on the council. But again, I would like to thank you, John, and all of the folks who organized this really great event today. And I'm just so happy and pleased to be part of it, and certainly to have been asked to come here today and kind of share some remembrances of our work here with the UFW and with Cesar at the time of the great letter strike. I would also certainly be remiss if we're talking about the UFW that I didn't mention Dolores Huerta. And also Filipino leaders and comrades, Larry Leon, and Pete Velasco. Without them, there would be no UFW. Yeah. And they sometimes get written out of the history of the formation of the UFW. When the Filipino farm workers were warriors in the field for many, many years. I mean, they waged war. And so Larry and Pete and Philip, you know, were personifications of the people who had actually propelled them into leadership. I think I'd also be remiss if I didn't say from the outset that starting tomorrow, some of our immigrant brothers and sisters may well be a part of the beginning of rounding up. What we have a responsibility to do, I think, today and from now on is to let everybody on earth know that we stand in support of our immigrant brothers and sisters, and we are going to resist in every way possible. I remember when Mr. Trump was president before, and because we, in our agency that that John mentioned, Village Project, we have a lot of families that don't have so-called papers.
Yeah.
And we were noticing that their children, students in our program, were not coming to the program anymore. And when we did see them, they saw that they were depressed. They weren't going to school, and we were trying to figure out why. And then we found out that they weren't going to school because they were afraid that if they came home, there would be no parents there. They weren't doing a lot of things because they were afraid of ICE. And so we called the parents together. And I was the executive director at the time. And I wanted them to understand that ICE has no business being in the Village Project in any of our programs ever. And that if they did somehow show up, the very first person they were going to have to put handcuffs on was the executive director. And it might be a little chore for them to do, as the resistance would be nonviolent. But I wanted them to understand that we fully supported them. And so for those of us who have organizations and we have undocumented sisters and brothers in there, we need to let them know. Well, we can't stop everything, but we sure as hell can stop them from coming into our programs. And we can do that in the best way possible. So that is something that we have to have as a part of whatever programs we have, in political statements that we're making, that we make that statement, and we make it clear, and that we do it consistently, and that we do it every single day from now on until we resolve this issue. During the Great Letter Strike, I was a member of the Black Panther Party, as John pointed out. And one of the things that we had accomplished in the party was the building of coalitions. We felt that the building of coalitions were really incredibly important. And so we had coalitions with groups like the Red Guard, which is a Japanese American revolutionaries. The Yellow Peril, I thought that was always an interesting name that they gave themselves, but they were Chinese American revolutionaries. The burgeoning American Indian movement. We had relations and building coalitions with those leaders, Russell Means and those other brothers and sisters. But the first coalition that we built, first alliance that we built, was with a group called the Brown Berets. And some of you may know who those are, or remember them. Well, that was actually our first coalition. That laid the groundwork for us to be able to do the other coalitions with all the other groups. We actually gave birth to the Peace and Freedom Party. And if you remember, one of their first presidential candidate was Elder Sleep, who was from the Black Panther Party. And many years later, Elaine Brown, who became the chairwoman of the Black Panther Party, had actually put out a statement about Cesar Chavez, showed a picture of her and Cesar, in which she talked about the incredible central value of black and brown alliances and coalitions. And it's always been our contention that the black and brown alliance, which is something that both Dr. King and Cesar Chavez talked about, and actually Cesar put into practice when he beamed at the idea of a Black United Farm Workers Support Committee. That coalition, that alliance, was actually essential to any other alliances that we would try to build. And so I just want to read for a second a couple of telegrams, because Dr. King and Cesar never physically met. But he sent a telegram to Caesar in 1966, in which he said, quote, and this was a big one, "Our separate struggles are one. A struggle for freedom, for dignity, and for humanity. You and your fellow workers have demonstrated your commitment to righting grievous wrongs forced upon exploited people. We are together with you in spirit and in determination that our dreams for a better tomorrow will be realized." When we came up on the idea of a Black United Farm Workers Support Committee, we went to a meeting that Cesar had on a church on Williams Road, and for some reason my old mind is no longer able to remember some things. Can't remember the name of the church, but I do remember the meeting. And one of the things that resonated with us in Cesar's speech was his explanation that the building of the United Farm Workers Union was not just a union movement, but it was a civil rights movement. And we have an old saying in the NAACP, which I've been involved with a number of years too, and that is that labor rights are civil rights, and civil rights are labor rights. So we don't separate. And basically, that's what Cesar was saying, and so we couldn't wait to meet with him. So after it was over with, and we had the chicken mole and some other stuff, then we were able to actually sit down with him, and when we posed the question to him about forming a Black United Farm Workers Union Support Committee, his face lit up. I mean, it literally lit up, and he had a big grin on his face, and we realized then that we had Caesar's blessing to go ahead on and put together this fighting organization. And so on the I think it was the following day, we came down Blanco, marching, us Black folks, and people started giving us an ovation and stuff, and we knew we belonged there. And so that was my first time meeting with Cesar. Of course, there was then the jailing, which was crazy. Gordon Campbell was the judge. Gordon Campbell used to always talk about, Mel Mason and I graduated from the same high school, Monterey High. I wasn't proud of that particular thing, but he was the one that actually had jailed Cesar. And so for a lot of us, we would spend daytime on the picket line out in Blanco, and then we would come at night and stuff and be a part of the vigils that were happening in the evening. We were also there when Coretta Scott King came. And the speech that was read this morning and stuff, which was quite something. What a lot of people don't know is that Coretta Scott King spoke to over 2,000 field workers. 2,000. That was right after she left the jail. Cesar always talked about his hero, Dr. King, that he, and he probably wasn't always nonviolent, but he began to study King and Gandhi. But King was the person that he could relate to most immediately because King was here. And he talked about how everything that Dr. King said in terms of his approach to dealing with struggle made all the sense in the world to him. And so he adopted that, and that became kind of the mode of operation of the United Farm Workers. Now, right before King died, he wrote another telegram, and this was, I think, in March of 1968, when Cesar was on a fast, and Dr. King said, I commend you for your bravery, salute you for your indefatigable work against poverty and injustice, and pray for your health. The plight of your people and ours is so grave that we all desperately need the inspiring example and effective leadership you have given. And of course, we heard the speech from Mrs. Scott King. We had a challenge when we were working with the letter strike because it was a dangerous time. It was a time when picket lines were attacked. It was a time, and certainly about a year later, thank you, brother. I don't know where this cold came from. But it was a very dangerous time. And none of us in the Black Farm Workers, United Farm Workers Support Committee were nonviolent. What we had to remind ourselves is the fact that regardless of what our philosophy were, we were under the discipline of the United Farm Workers and also Cesar. And so we practiced it. We practiced what we needed to do. And so we were there all the way until the end of the strike. So the United Farm Workers had won, incredible victory, just like they had done in Delano just a little bit before that with the great strike. But what do we need to do moving forward? Because the UFW and unions throughout this country have always been victimized by reaction. With the greatest victories came even greater reaction. Attempts to destroy unions. That's still going on today. That is virulently going on today. And what we also began to figure out is that anti-labor reaction and pro-racist reaction go hand in hand. When you look at the fact that Cesar saw correctly that the United Farm Workers building that organization, building that union, was not just a union movement, it was a civil rights movement, was because he knew that racism and anti-labor actions on the part of those in power went hand in hand. And so for us, what we did back during that strike, by building the United Farm Workers, the Black United Farm Workers Support Committee, was to let everyone know how important and how central black and brown unity is to any movement that we have in this country. So you can help me to the time as well, John. I'm going to go over. But, and so what we've done over the years here is put that into practice. Some of you may remember that we had something years ago called the Civil Rights Coalition of Monterey County. Yes. Had we not been able to establish a coalition between, our branch of the NAACP and the LULAC councils, we would not been able to have a coalition. But when we were able to do that, and so now we're talking about black and brown, then that gave us the basis for having this hellified fighting organization that we call the Civil Rights Coalition of Monterey County. It would not have been able to happen if there hadn't been black and brown unity. So we have a responsibility today, and I'll wrap up my talk, but we have a responsibility today to make sure that that happens. And this is not saying that we don't want to ally with anybody else. But we also know how critical and how central it is and its importance that we have that black and brown alliance. And from that we can build to bring solutions to the problems that we face here in this country. One of the things that we've done, and again, the system has a way of dividing us. Malcolm X talked about it, Dr. King talked about it, Cesar talked about it. They have a way of dividing us. Sometimes it's so, sometimes it's not. But they know that if they divide us, and especially here in this county, that it is absolutely, and they will let you know, it is absolutely not in their interest to have black and brown people working together. And what we have to understand is that it is not in our interest to not be together. It is in our interest to be together. And so what we have been doing is working with a lot of our young people, because we have incidents where we have black and brown youth going after each other. But they get that from some of us older black and brown people and stuff who are off base and stuff as well. And so they go take this mess out into the community on our school campuses. And so we spend a lot of time, with these youngsters to try to correct that. And so what we did was, in Seaside, just as one example, when the campus blew up a few years ago and some kids almost got killed, we brought them together. The shot callers, the shooters, the whatever else, the beater-uppers, we brought them all together. And we basically forced them to have to sit down with each other. And yeah, they glowered at each other, they did a whole bunch of stuff. But as we began to talk to them politically, because our kids are smart. They may not act like it sometimes, but they really are. And the school districts feed off of that. The school districts are not educating our children. The school districts are killing our children. And so they basically reinforce, this negative, like intergroup racism, if you want to call it that. But what we did with those youngsters, and this may be an example for the rest of us, is that we got them in a room. And some of us are not afraid of them. And they understood that we weren't afraid of them. Eventually what began to happen was the kids would come in, they would bump fists, and then they gave the group a name. It was called One Circle, which means, as they said, we're one family. And that was not in the interest of those other folks. It was certainly in our interest for that to happen. But we saw the possibility in it, that if these youngsters could consider themselves as being family and being one, then think of what we can do if we continue to do that work, on a much broader basis and stuff, and especially people, some of the people who are our ages. Unions and our people of color are under attack in many ways that they've never been before. This is what we have to understand. And then when we begin to understand that the anti-labor activities and the racist activities go hand in hand, then we know how to fight this double-pronged enemy with a double-pronged strategy. So I just want to thank you very much for listening to me. Hopefully that made some sense.
Muchas gracias por tus palabras. We do have in Salinas opportunities for this circle making. I think of the great work of MILPA that they're doing with young people. And of course the district is trying to learn and improve with hirings like Tanisha, who spoke so gracefully earlier this morning. And I'm going to say a personal note that I know Regina, your wife, pretty well, and just like Dr. King's wife spoke in his absence, I'm sure that she could have done a very similar speech to what you gave us today. Yeah. Él está de acuerdo que su esposa probablemente, si necesario, puede decir las mismas palabras, tal vez mejor. We're going to transition on, and before we transition on to another musical, and then we're going to end up with Mr. Guillermo Martin Block, talking about his immigrant activity, his immigrant activism activity. I'm going to ask a young man to come up. His name is Angelo, and he's going to read a couple of King quotations for us.
We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or perish together as fools. Debemos aprender a vivir juntos como hermanos y hermanas, o perecer juntos como tontos. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. El arco del universo moral es largo, pero se inclina hacia la justicia. I really appreciate everyone being here and keeping memory of Martin Luther King Jr. here, and I just want to know to the people that are a little bit older, that older than me, sorry about that.
You're a child.
It is a privilege and it is a gift to have that, and if you can instill those lessons and knowledge into a lot of people, or younger people, it is very appreciated. Sometimes it might feel like a lot of young people might not want to learn that, but especially around my generation, we're learning about all those, labor relations, history, regarding communities and coalitions where it's very important for us to be unified, because we learn in every generation. So I'd appreciate if everyone in the room could at least instill that in the younger people.
Thank you, Angelo. I was paying so much attention to the clock and where we want to be at certain times. I forgot to mention that Angelo is a young Salinas person. He's studying law at Hartnell College now. His ultimate goal at this point in his young life is to be a city planner and get city planning training in the future.
All right.
So,
Got my vote.
I think we'll hear again from you before we're through today. And we're going to transition now to the, as I said, the immigration rights movement. Vamos a mover la tema de derechos por inmigrantes, en particular cómo pueden usar, cómo deben usar la Constitución americana ahora en estos días particularmente. Pero before that, we're going to have another musical interlude by Jeff. This will be a nice transition. Jeff, pasar otra canción para nosotros.
Un verso con corazón, okay? Just one verse, sing it with all your heart. De colores se visten los campos en la primavera. De colores son los pajaritos que vienen de afuera. De colores es el arco iris que vemos lucir. Y por eso los grandes amores que muchos colores que gustan a mí. Y por eso los grandes amores que muchos colores que gustan a mí.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Gracias, Jeff. So, ahora tenemos otro speaker. Se llama Guillermo Medellín Block. Medellín Block. Y él es, yo creo que él es nativo de Salinas también. Ok, qué bueno. Y está trabajando ahora por la universidad local, CSUMB. Salinas native working now at the CSUMB, pero también trabaja por Stanislaus, CSU Stanislaus al mismo tiempo. Y lo que está pasando con él es está tratando de aumentar y notificar la comunidad, toda la comunidad, sobre los asuntos que los inmigrantes están facing en ese momento. Son asuntos, challenges monumentales. Pero podemos asistir a maneras que la gente podemos aliar y podemos hacer seguro que su trabajo es exitoso. So, puede entrar, señor Guillermo Medellín Block.
In the spirit of Dr. King's message, we are reminded of his powerful words. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. First, I want to express my deep gratitude to the organizers of the event and to Juan Juarez, neighborhood organizer of Thriving Neighborhoods, Building Healthy Communities, for the invitation. I also want to thank our city leaders for hosting the Know Your Rights press conference last week, for highlighting the important initiatives that are taking place here in the Monterey County. My name is Guillermo Metalin Bach, and my parents immigrated to the United States from Tamaulipas, Mexico. I was born in Yuma, Arizona, where my family lived until I was 10 years old. We were forced to move to California to seek sanctuary due to the fear of deportation and family separation. During our time in Arizona, we experienced family separation. I grew up in Salinas, attended local high schools, and attended Harnell Community College, where I earned my associate's degree, and then later transferred to Cal State Monterey Bay, CSUMB, where I also graduated. For over 7 years, I have worked as an academic professional in higher education, with a focus on supporting particularly undocumented students. I ran the Undocumented Student Services Program at CSUMB. During this time, I now work at Stan State University, also running the Undocumented Student Services Program. I have worked hard to increase the retention and graduation rates of undocumented students and those who make status families, while developing initiatives of best practices to better serve and support undocumented students. This included launching a CalFresh alternative program due to food insecurity, and also being the chair of the 5th and the 6th annual Undocumented Success Conference in Monterey Bay, which attracted over 350 registered attendees, including folks from Virginia. I was also part of a committee that was instrumental in building an Undocu Ally training that is now available system-wide across the 23 CSU campuses, which educates our community on how to better serve and support our undocumented students in higher education. A quote from a student in the Modesto B, that's part of my program, resonates deeply with me. How will I be able to find a job and contribute to my community if I still don't know and don't have legal status? What frustrates me the most is how DACA has been handled by courts and by politicians.
Yeah.
We're not criminals. We're people with dreams and goals. All we want is a chance to contribute to our community, to build better lives for ourselves. But with the uncertainty about DACA, it's hard to not feel anxious all the time. I feel like I'm stuck in a limbo, trying to plan for a future we don't even know it's possible. On top of that, hearing Trump's promise to carry out the largest domestic deportation in American history only adds to that fear.
Boom.
It's hard not to feel like we're being targeted just for wanting to live our lives and chase our dreams, nuestros sueños. Dr. King famously said, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out to the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal."
Yeah.
We share that dream. Compartimos ese sueño. We dream of a future where we will not be judged by our immigration status, where we will be treated with dignity and respect, where we can live without the constant fear of being detained or being deported and facing family separation. We dream of a future where no one is called illegal.
Yes.
And every person is valued for who they are and for their contributions to our society. In the past weeks, we have hosted 3 Know Your Rights rally here in Salinas and distributed over 1,500 red cards, which inform our immigrant community of their constitutional rights, regardless of their immigration status. The goal was not to anticipate a threat of ICE, but rather to build unity and community and to have the infrastructure, the resources to respond when the support of a community member is needed. Working with undocumented students, I always hear the question, why should I go to college if I can't legally work in the U.S.? In these moments, and particularly, I remind them that faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. It might not always be clear that the future holds, but we take the first steps because we believe in the power of education. Because education is the key to success, not only to move yourself, your familia, but your community forward. Last year, I had the privilege of lobbying in Sacramento alongside other higher education professionals to advocate for the continued funding of the CSU Legal Project. This project provides free immigration legal services to students, families, staff, and faculty, free of charge. These services are critical to ensuring that our students can focus in their studies and focus on graduating, especially given the fear and the uncertainty ahead and given the political landscape shift. Unfortunately, due to California's huge budget deficit, this was one of the programs that was identified by Governor Newsom's office to be cut back. However, thank you to the efforts of other higher education professionals that went to Sacramento and advocated for the continued funding of this project, the project will remain in place and will continue to be funded. While in Sacramento, I met Senator Ana Caballero, who shared the incredible work that she had done in Salinas. As the first Latina woman mayor of Salinas, she spoke passionately about how important it is to support our community, and she was extremely happy to see someone from Monterey County advocating for the future of undocumented students and families. It was a powerful reminder that we are not alone in this fight, and that our voices as advocates for justice matter. This brings me to a critical need of our community. We know that many people in Monterey County, including educators, community members, want to help as undocumented allies. But they often don't know how to effectively support undocumented individuals. We need to create more spaces for education, understanding the action. That's what we're calling for the development of an undocumented ally training for our community here in Monterey County. The undocumented ally training will equip our neighbors, leaders, and institutions with the knowledge and tools to better support undocumented individuals, whether they are students, workers, families, by learning about their rights, challenges, and the best ways to advocate for their well-being. So many of us want to make a difference, but we need the guidance to do so effectively. Together we can create a community that embraces everyone regardless of their immigration status, and to ensure that no one has to live in fear. Let us unite in honor of Dr. King's legacy. La unión hace la fuerza. Together, brown and black communities stand strong. To all the undocumented students and members of our community, you belong here, your presence is important and is deeply valued. You are seen, you are heard, your experience, your struggles matter to us, and we are here for you. And together we will move forward as a community united in strength, solidarity, and resilience. I want to give a huge shout out to Enrique Lopez Navarro from Salinas and Fotografía. If you need photographs, he volunteered, donated his time to be here today. But other than that, that concludes my remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Guillermo. Very encouraging words for us.
us, and we're winding up the show now, the ceremony. And I have a couple of more quotations and then closing remarks, and then we'll end with a song once again. So I'm going to ask Angelo again and another community activist, Eleanor, to come lead us through a couple of very important quotations from Dr. King. So come on, y'all.
Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
La injusticia en cualquier lugar es una amenaza para la justicia en todos lugares.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
La oscuridad no puede expulsar a la oscuridad. Solo la luz puede hacer eso. El odio no puede expulsar al odio. Solo el amor puede hacer eso.
Yes. Thank you.
What a great celebration we've had today. So much help came from the community to make this really happen. It really pleases my heart so much. Qué bueno la conmemoración que tuvimos hoy y tanta gracia de la comunidad que yo vi hoy es increíble en realidad. The group of Salinas activists, with support of our City Council and the Interfaith Alliances, are honored to have shared this celebration about Dr. King's birthday with you. Este grupo de activistas de Salinas, con el apoyo de Ayuntamiento y Alianza de Interreligiosa, que se sienten honorados de haber compartido esta celebración del cumpleaños de Dr. King con usted. We hope to have shared important history. We hope to have shared new insights and certainly hope for a workable future together in the next few years. Together we can overcome the challenges that are in front of us. Esperábamos haber compartido una historia importante, nuevos conocimientos y la esperanza de un futuro viable juntos durante los próximos años. Juntos podemos superar los desafíos que tenemos por adelante. I'd like to say one more thing. It was so exciting. All the speakers were great. Mel, you were wonderful. It was so great to hear Angelo and the other young man, Guillermo, because sometimes we older folks are feeling like our day has passed, and sometimes we feel like I don't have anything to offer, nobody's going to listen, we don't know how to use TikTok. How can I be effective? How can I be effective? But qué bueno que oído de ustedes dos jovencitos, que hay maneras que nosotros, I hate to say it, nosotros con poder, con privilegio, hay un espacio por nosotros, hay un espacio importante aparece por nosotros in el proceso del futuro. It looks as though, I guess it's called allyship, it looks as though, hearing from these young people, that there's a space for us old fogies. And let's hope that we can get into that space. So, la unión es la fuerza, y vamos a terminar con una más del señor Jeff Richmond. Yeah!
It's been an honor to march with you today, to share these songs with you today. Ha sido un honor marchar con ustedes cantando y compartiendo esa música, esas canciones. So, why don't we stand?
Deep in my heart.
with us and with a community like this. Thank you, Jeff, and all the people who were so instrumental in making this happen today. Andrew Sandoval, of course. One more housekeeping note. We're finishing at about 10:45. That gives us an hour to get to Seaside Celebration, which begins at 11:30, 11:45. And it'll be a similar message, I'm sure, that we're hearing. And between 11:45 is going to begin a march at the corner of Noche Buena and Broadway. So that's the place to head right now. There will be a march to the Old Ohio Center, and there will be a program there this afternoon. So we have time to do that. No excuses, no pretextos, para no presentar a la Seaside.
We got it.
Okay?
Let's hear it for Dr. John. Let's hear it for